Hey, thanks for coming back to the channel. Um, it's Saturday, June 25th, and the dust has settled since the U.S. Supreme Court has decided on the Bruen case. That's the concealed carry case for the state of New York. Now, um, what's the anti-gun states like New York and California and so forth are losing their minds and threatening as as many obstacles as possible, to say, okay, yes, you can get a permit, but we're going to make sure there's no place in public for you to carry. So that's the next set of hurdles that is coming up as a result of this. For example, in the state of New York, the governor there has said, and there's a list of things that they're trying to do. And one of them is saying basically there's no, other than the sidewalk in front of your house, if you happen to have a house or whatever, uh, they're going to define pretty much the entire outside area of the city as sensitive places restricted to carrying firearms. Public transportation. I mean, if you've ever been to Manhattan, that's the only way you get around is public, or you walk, right? And they're talking about buildings where people congregate, and then they're putting 1,000-foot virtual fence around those quote sensitive areas, which if you just did the geometry, there would be no place to actually move. You couldn't get from where you are to any place else without crossing one of these restricted areas. Now, since strict scrutiny is now the standard, and rules like that would severely restrict the movement of law-abiding citizens in public who have a right to be armed. I think a lot of that would be struck down. But they're taking the approach. I call it the Trump approach, right? Whether you like it or not, he says, screw you, see you in court, sue me, and we'll just wait you out. We'll drag this on as long as we can, as long as we can. And that's the attitude of some of these cities. Now, in other places, the law enforcement people, the people who have been quote using their discretion or abusing their discretion, have said, you know what, screw this. Yeah, go ahead and apply for your concealed carry permit. We're now no longer going to consider just cause. So you meet the objective criteria, you're going to get the permit. A lot of law enforcement in many states are doing that. But it's the places where we can carry that will matter. Now, another thing to consider is that in America, we have three branches of government, right? The executive, the judicial, and the legislative. The judicial has no enforcement power. The executive branch, under which is all the military and the DOJ, has enforcement. And so the president has all the guns. Only the executive branch can enforce law. Now, both the current president, President Biden, and his attorney general, Garland, have said the same thing. Screw you to the Supreme Court. We hear what you did, but we're not, you could say whatever you want. We're not going to, we on law enforcement side are not going to punish states who don't do that. We're going to let the courts decide. So what are the penalties in court? Money, lawsuits. But you're not going to have the Department of Justice send the FBI into the State House of New York City and remove the governor because they have decided they're not going to execute that. And the danger there is that the courts, in this case the federal appellate courts, can make decisions supporting the Second Amendment and our right to move around in public, but law enforcement in those jurisdictions can decide not to change what they're doing. What does that mean? That means that even as long as the cops don't have a law from their state, that says stop arresting people for carrying guns in public, or the reverse, if they carry in this area that they said they shouldn't, then arrest them, and it's a felony. You see where I'm going with that? So until there is support from law enforcement at the federal level, it's going to be we the Second Amendment community could win as many lawsuits as we want, but unless there's some enforcement action, which can only come through Department of Justice, or the financial impact is so huge that or someone is determined to be a criminal because they have refused to execute the national law. I mean, this isn't over. This isn't over. And when you have the President of the United States and the Department of Justice giving the middle finger to the Supreme Court on one of the most important rulings in 100 years, you know, that we're going to have to see about that. We're going to have to see about that. What kind of action are people going to do to get in the face of armed citizens and try to prevent us from moving around? I mean, I could see that happening. Imagine a night of rage where or worse, imagine somebody doxing all the concealed carry permit holders in a particular state, which is what they tried to do in New York City. Man, this thing could go sideways. So good news, but there's a tremendous amount of resistance coming from those states. And those states have a lot of money and they have a lot of power. And we do not have the support from the president or the Department of Justice to enforce this ruling. So stand by, stay vigilant, and as always, thanks for watching and carry on.